Hello, this little lecture will be going over the figure 8 part, mill part assignment. It brings in one new kind of concept, would be the sub-programs that you're going to be utilizing. You're going to be using what they call a local subroutine and just a subroutine. The only difference would be in the subroutine calls up a whole separate program very similar to what the G150 does. The local subroutine calls up the routine within the main program, but after the M30. And we'll go over that in just a few minutes. So once again, you want to take, first thing you want to do is take a look at this, what processes you have. We have that face off. You're going to do the outside. You're going to pre-drill these holes again with a 3/4 inch drill. Okay, so probably once again, you're going to want to drill your holes right after you face off to establish those centers, and that way you're not doing multiple tool changes. So with that being said, we're going to jump right into the sub-programs. Here's your rubric. Notice that where it describes, I'll just change my color here real quick. I guess not. Where it describes what you need to sub-program, define the outside shape, and then in your circles, your drilled holes, you're going to use what they call the local subroutine. To be honest with you, I really don't care if you use a local subroutine for the top, for the outside, and use the sub-program for the bottom. But just as long as you incorporate both types of sub-programs into your part, that would be fine. So back to our, pull up our manual. So on page 146, it goes over subroutines. If you kind of look on there, a local subroutine is called up with an M97, and a subprogram is called up with an M98. Okay, they're very similar. With the M98, you still use the P code, but that stands for the program number. And then the M97 stands for the N number of the line that it's going to, the first line that starts your subprogram, and it's after your M30. Okay, so the book goes through a couple examples here. They both deal with drilling holes, which is probably your most common one. So we're going to call up an M98. This would be your sub-program, where it's a whole separate program. So notice that we're spot drilling, we're drilling and we're tapping, but all the X and Y locations are all the same. So they have their tooling information on the first 4 lines of every feature. They have your can cycle, because your can cycles are going to be different. And then they just go M98, P105. So P105, there's going to be a program in your memory that has an O00105. Now notice that there is no PO105. It's just P, no O, and your number. So in your subprogram, then you just have all your other hole locations, and the way they worked it in here, because they're not doing anything else after that, they right away put in those last 3 lines into every feature. G80 cancels that can cycle, goes home. M99 mean return to the main program. So it kind of saves the typing of all. You only have to put them in there once. So like I said, they're not real subroutines are not real common nowadays because of the copy and pasting ease on the computers. Even on the simulators and the controls, you can copy and paste real easy. But they still are a very effective tool. So this is a subprogram. And the only difference now with the local subroutine, okay, M97, P10. So this is your end of your program. So they have a line 10 after the M30 that calls out all your hole locations. Very similar to the top, but the only thing is this is just inside your main program. It's after the M30, and you got N10, and now you have all your hole locations. G80, G00, once again, they put that in there. So, like I said, very similar to the way they work. It's just the only difference. One is a separate program, and one is after the M30. The local subroutine starts with the letter N, the line number, and your 10. Okay, so I'm going to jump back to your part. So the hole locations are going to be very similar. Now, you do have different series of holes, and you can kind of do this any different way. Some people have done it where they had actually two sub-programs. One would chamfer all 6 holes. They would drill all 6 holes, and then they would have another subroutine or another sub-program that would just tap these holes and then drill those out to a 3/4 inch. So you can kind of work it any way you want. What's required to have these 4 hole locations in your sub program. If you want to incorporate these, you may, that's no problem. Or you can just go and return to main program, and you can chamfer and drill them out. And then obviously your 3/4 inch would be a whole separate drill cant cycle. But now when you come to the outside, doesn't matter really, once again, if you use the sub or the local. So what are you going to copy? Obviously we have different Z depths, so that creates that issue a little bit. So what you're going to want to do inside your main program, you're going to have your tool number, M06, your G90, G54. You're going to have your S, your M, your G43, your H. And then from here, what I would do is do a Z -1/4 inch, if that's what you're going to do. And then from here is going to be where your sub-programs are going to start. So then now you start up with your sub-program at either M97 or an M98, and your cutter comp is applied. Return to main program. Okay, so then it would drop down again into that Z -0.25 and then go from there. So from there you would have to have a Z -0.5 and then also call up your M97 or your M98 and go up for however many passes you're going to do. So, and also remember to get back to your start point, because you're more than likely going to be ramping off and then coming up. So you're going to have to, probably right here, you're going to get back to your start point before you drop down into your Z depth. So it does create an extra little challenge with that step over, with that Z step down, but usually isn't that big of an issue, so you just have to work through it and keep track where you're at. So if you have any questions, please come and see me. Thank you.